AFR On Demand is brought to you by Breck Golf. Try Beaver Creek today, just 20 minutes from downtown Baton Rouge in the Zachary area. They've got a PGA Tour driving range, a short game practice area, 30 to 40-yard practice shots. It's a great place to chip and putt and practice if you don't have time for a full round. Book your tee time today, golf.breck.org, golf.breck.org.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding, and oh, we do shutters too.
We rejoin you from South Stadium Club here on an historic day in LSU football. Lane Kiffin introduces the 37th head coach. We heard from Dr. Wade Roos, who introduced Vera Jawsbury, and then Lane Kiffin spoke for about a half an hour there. Gave his introductory thoughts, then answered about a dozen questions or so. Some of the highlights here from Lane Kiffin. He said this place is different. That's why we're here. Saying several times LSU is the best job in football. As he noted, someone close to me reminded me. It seems like he was saying there that was Nick Saban. He hinted at several times, didn't want to say it because obviously Nick Saban coached for a long time at Alabama. But I think most in the room understood what he was saying. But he said the mission is to bring the best players in the country to LSU, and that starts with keeping the players from Louisiana in the state. Obviously, his mentor, one of his mentors, Nick Saban, coined the phrase of putting the fence around the state of Louisiana, something Lane Kiffin intends to do and to continue. He said, he joked when he was asked what his mentors told him. He said, everyone outside of the state of Mississippi said go to LSU. And we've reported that among those, Jimmy Sexton, Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, basically all the people, Pete Carroll, that he trusts and confides in, encouraged him to take the LSU job. He was asked about his offense. He said, the Briles offense that they build upon, they want to be the most unique offense in the country. He talked about, very interestingly, learning from three of the greatest defensive minds, Monty Kiffin, his dad, Pete Carroll, Nick Saban, his three mentors, all great defensive minds, and he would listen to say what gave them problems, and those were the things that he wanted to do and to emulate in his offense and his offenses. And he said, obviously, talked about memories of being an opponent in Tiger Stadium. He talked about how the weight that felt like a weight on your shoulders being an opponent, and talking to guys who had coached here before, again, referencing Nick Saban, how that elevates you when you're on the home side. A few notables. He did say Frank Wilson will coach LSU in the bowl game. So some had asked and wondered, would Lane Kiffin coach, or who would coach the bowl game? It still is to be determined what's going to happen with the rest of the staff. When he was asked that staff question, he wouldn't go into names. I did have several more questions written down. One of those among them, Chief, was if he would confirm a report specifically about Blake Baker being retained, but I didn't get the microphone again. Understandably, a lot of people here. But was able to get one question in. The question that I got in was about his NIL plan, and I wanted to ask that because it was something that I was told very specifically throughout this entire process that was most important to Lane Kiffin. We were describing it earlier in the show and in previous episodes, where for Lane Kiffin, one of his concerns, and I'll use that as maybe in air quotes, from his time at Ole Miss, was that in this new age of NIL, reverting to the blue bloods, because you can no longer just take money, fund a collective, and pay your players. You have to have a plan to get that money and those deals approved through the NIL Go clearinghouse and to the players. And he said he didn't know the terms of his contract. He said all the contracts, and he said 4, by the way. We're understanding there was Ole Miss, LSU, Florida. He didn't say who the 4th contract was. Perhaps maybe Auburn was in the mix. I don't know. He didn't say who the 4th was. But he said all those numbers were similar. He said the one that was not even close was LSU's plan. And it was the bet. He said it was unanimously said it was the best setup, is the way that he said it, by a mile. So he did talk a lot about the emotion of going from the boos to the cheers, and how you think you could tell that it does weigh on him. Said he had to call a state trooper that was that was a friend of his, knew that they were leaving the state, who could actually get him there. So it was tough having his son in the car and hearing the things they heard. But then coming to LSU, landing, and then feeling the emotion with the Board of Supervisors there to greet him at the MMR hangar there on Sunday evening. And then as he's driving down Nicholson toward Tiger Stadium, he relayed maybe the funniest moment of the press conference when he called Ed Ogeron and said, "Man, this place makes me want to talk like you." That will only fuel the fire, fan the flames of the idea that Ed Ogeron could very well be returning to LSU as a member of Lane Kiffin's staff. Again, none of those, Lane Kiffin would not go into detail about any of the staff decisions or changes. So he did not speak specifically about Ogeron joining his staff, only referring to Ed Ogeron, which if he doesn't know it now, mentioning Coach O is going to draw a lot of conversation around here. That would be certainly a different type of scenario, one that I don't know if it's been replicated in football before. Well, actually, I can't actually say that because Bobby Petrino did it. Was the head coach at Arkansas and returned as the offensive coordinator here for the past 2 seasons. But that's certainly a rare situation where you'd see someone who was the head coach at a place return to that place as an assistant, but perhaps Ed Ogeron will be doing that. Lane Kiffin was asked what Verge Ausberry said to him when they first talked. He said, "Go coach your team." And we started the show. I commended Verge, and I think he deserves a tremendous amount of credit. Look, over the years, I've done this job and I've covered this place for a long time, and I've been fortunate to develop a lot of really good relationships with people in and around LSU athletics who will trust me with information and have been very accommodating. The fact that we're doing this show here today, it was LSU's willingness to accommodate us because this press conference was at 3:30, and I didn't want to be in downtown Baton Rouge. I wanted to be here at this press conference today. So they allowed us to come. But the point being that throughout this process, as I tried to get information from people within LSU athletics, within the university administration, within sports information, throughout, nobody was saying anything. They did a masterful job, Verge down, of it was referred several times as quiet confidence, and not elaborating really on their plan of how they were going to go about doing this. But I think one of the things that served LSU very well in this search, as we referred to at the start of the show, is they made it, if you're in sales, you would call it a buying atmosphere. You would disarm the person so you don't feel salesy and pushy. You give them information, allow them to make a decision and feel comfortable with you. And it feels very much like that's what LSU did here. They told Lane Kiffin from the start, go coach your team, coach through the playoff. You're our guy. We'll wait for you. And everything you need, we're going to have every resource available. And they proved it over and again. Lane Kiffin did talk about the importance of his family making that trip to Baton Rouge because you don't have 4 months in relocating in a job like you would for other jobs. They had to make a decision quickly, and why that was important for his family to come make that visit as they did 2 weeks ago today. So the Lane Kiffin press conference ends. He did say that he informed Ole Miss Saturday night that he was going to take the LSU job. So they knew Saturday night that officially then that Lane Kiffin was coming to Baton Rouge. So we got a lot to talk about still as we move through our final hour of the show. If any of these folks are lingering around here, we'll see if we can snag. I see behind me, I think Lane Kiffin is having a breakout session there with some members of the media, but we'll see if we can snag any of these folks. Hey, we're brought to you by our friends over at Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry, lmfj.com, lmfj.com for Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. Remember, at Lee Michaels, we're approaching the holiday season. If maybe around Christmas you want to pop the question, gents, make sure you go to the jeweler that has helped Louisianians get engaged for 4 decades. It's Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. 10 locations in all, 2 in Baton Rouge, Corporate Boulevard in Bocage, Mall of Louisiana, Lafayette, New Orleans, Shreveport, and online at lmfj.com, lmfj.com for Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. Okay, y'all, it is after further review, and we're glad to have you hanging out with us here. We got 1 hour to go here from the South Stadium Club in Tiger Stadium, where the Lane Kiffin introductory press conference has wrapped. We'll continue to react to this wild weekend that is, and as we look forward with what we know, we'll do it as we wrap up with hour number 3 after SportsCenter.
AFR.
Our Lady of the Lake championship health partner of LSU Athletics, and our friends at Our Lady of the Lake welcome Coach Lane Kiffin and his family to Baton Rouge as the newest members of the Tiger family. Of course, Our Lady of the Lake, championship health partner of LSU Athletics, not only cares for the champions on the field wearing the purple and gold, but also everyday champions like you and me all across Louisiana as part of the Franciscan Missionaries of Our Lady Health System. Actually just saw my friend E.J. Kuiper, who's the present CEO of FMOL, who was part of the search committee as well to bring Lane Kiffin here. So from everyone within the FMOL system and Our Lady of the Lake, they welcome Lane Kiffin and his family to Baton Rouge as the newest members of the Tiger family. And, of course, for all health care that you may have, from specialized care like heart health, stroke, cancer, pediatrics, make sure you trust the lake like the LSU championship athletes do as well. OLOLRMC.com/LSU. Our Lady of the Lake and LSU, together we roar.
Wherever you go, whatever they get into. From chill time to everyday adventures, protect your dog from parasites with Credelio Quattro. For full safety information, side effects, and warnings, visit CredeliaQuattroLabel.com. Consult your vet or call 1-888-545-5973. Ask your vet for Credelio Quattro and visit QuattroDog.com.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Raising Cane studio.
Let's ride! Woo!
Hour 3, off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. It's AFR. We are not in the Raising Cane studio, although Cane sounds really good right now. We are in South Stadium Club in Tiger Stadium here. The Lane Kiffin press conference wrapped up. Dr. Wade Roos, for Jawsbury, Lane Kiffin all speaking. The press conference lasted about 45 minutes, and we're very pleased now to be joined by Ross Dellenger, good friend from Yahoo Sports, who's been on Kiffin Watch like all of us, although he actually had to leave his home and everything. How are you? Thanks for coming on.
Good, Matt.
If you would, how long were you in? You went to the Egg Bowl in Starkville, then went straight to Oxford?
Yeah, I flew into Starkville or Columbus, Mississippi. Thanksgiving night, covered the Egg Bowl. Drove Friday night of the Egg Bowl to Oxford, and figured that something would happen there that would warrant me being there, and so spent 2 nights there, and obviously Saturday night and into Sunday morning where all that transpires, and then drove Sunday afternoon to Baton Rouge to be here. So
give me a sense, if you would, of what it was like in Oxford being there for those 48 hours.
Yeah, it was weird. You know, Friday night I kind of went out in the square, and it was pretty quiet day. All the students were home, you know, on holiday break, and so it was really quiet. Oxford was really quiet. Campus was pretty much dead and quiet. I remember spent a lot of time driving around campus on Saturday, trying to see where people were and what they were doing, maybe. And then Saturday night, of course, there was a big meeting at the Chancellor's home on Ole Miss's campus with Lane Kiffin and Keith Carter, the athletic director, and the Chancellor. And so I staked out that for about 2 hours. As Lane referenced in his press conference, I was across the street from the Chancellor's house. And
is that what he said? You're like, I see you.
Yeah, and what's funny is I missed it, but Shay Dixon of On 3 asked Verge Jawsbury about when he felt confident that Lane was coming. And Verge apparently said, well, we're just all following around Ross, who was following around Lane in Oxford in the car, staked out in a parking lot. I was like, that's pretty accurate, because I'll be honest, I was having, not necessarily with Verge, but there was some communication I was keeping with LSU people so I could try to figure out what was going on. But I think there was a sense they were relying on information that I was, tweeting or posting from campus, because though I think they had Kiffin's commitment, you sort of never know. And I think there was some nervousness to a degree. And so that was wild Saturday night. It became apparent to me, and ended up posting a story with all this 7 or 8 o'clock maybe on Saturday night, that Lane Kiffin basically told Keith Carter and the chancellor in the meeting that he intended to leave, and they weren't going to let him coach the playoff. And that conversation seemed to carry over to the next morning, as Lane said today. Lane was holding out hope that he could still coach the playoff when it was never going to happen, right? Ole Miss was never going to allow that, and there's probably very few athletic directors or chancellors at one school who would allow a coach who's leaving for potentially, arguably, their chief rival to continue to coach the team. So I'm not too surprised that happened.
Ross Dellenger's with us here on site at South Stadium Club. So you referenced something interesting there where you said LSU felt confident, or they felt like they had Lane's commitment, but you never know. Part of that feels like, and I've said this to our audience here a multitude of times over the last several weeks. Like, I don't know Lane Kiffin. I've interviewed him, but I can't purport to know the man. I know what everybody else sees. You know Lane Kiffin. You've covered him a long time. You have a relationship to whatever degree. What is LSU getting in Lane Kiffin, the person that's coming to be the football coach here?
Well, I mean, number one, they're getting a guy that Nick Saban, I think I said publicly, is the best in-game play caller he's ever been around. So that's a pretty good statement from someone like that. And to be clear, Charlie Weiss Jr., the offensive coordinator for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, and now obviously got on the plane coming here. He calls a lot or most of the plays, but obviously it's Lane Kiffin's offense, and he probably calls it the way that I'm sure Lane, to a degree, wants it to be called. So you're getting that offensive mind and strategy and scheming and all that part. But the second thing you're getting, and I think you heard Lane say it today, and you asked the question about the NIL, the roster and roster compensation. He was ahead of sort of everybody in the country when it came to the portal and using the transfer portal and how to use the transfer portal and building an NIL structure. He was ahead of virtually everybody. He was more aggressive with it. He was progressive with it. He sort of treated it like the NFL. And I think that really is a big reason why Ole Miss is sort of where it is, because he was so aggressive. So you're certainly getting somebody that knows he's no good without talent, and he's not afraid to, cherry pick players from the portal and fill holes. That's for sure. And then I'd say, third, you're getting a guy who has reformed his life. He's changed. He hasn't drank in 5 years. I don't know if he's ever called himself an alcoholic, but I think he's suggested that he was that, and so he hasn't drank in 5 years. And he goes to yoga or hot yoga every morning. Virtually, I don't think he hardly misses a workout. He's probably lost 40 pounds, 30 or 40 pounds in the last 4 or 5 years. So you're kind of getting somebody who's cleaned up their life and understands a little more mature, maybe more of a sort of family guy. He's sort of drifted into that family guy that he never really was. He's now more. And as you get older, I think that happens to everybody. And it took a little longer with Lane, but late 40s and into 50 or so, I think that's happened with him. Is that he's sort of more mature, family guy, knows he doesn't need to be doing all these other things. And you've seen that transition onto the field with 3 of his best seasons that he's had as a coach.
Ross Dellenger here just for a couple more minutes at Ross Dellenger. Make sure you read his stuff at Yahoo. You do great work, but I love that it's also free. It's a great thing about Yahoo. There's no paywall, so make sure you read Ross's stuff. You were on the LSU beat, so you lived here, and you know Lane Kiffin. How do you think Lane Kiffin and Baton Rouge and LSU fit?
Lane has been, I think he said 7. This is his 7th school, right? So
I think he said it's his 6th head coaching job.
Yeah,
6th head coaching job.
Los Angeles, right?
Well, the Raiders, Tennessee, USC, FAU, LSU, Ole Miss. Six. So this is 6.
So he's lived in a lot of different places. I mean, think of South Florida, in Knoxville, North Mississippi, and obviously on the West Coast in LA. He's virtually gotten each kind of at least for football, college football is concerned, he's sort of got each, except the Midwest, and he's not a cold guy, so he wasn't ever going to.
Born in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah, but he hates the cold, it was like the Penn State job was open, and I don't know if that's what he was referencing. He kept referencing a fourth school that was in the mix for him. I asked him afterward, walking out, who the fourth school was, and he said I purposely did not mention it, and then he wouldn't tell me. So, but I assume it was Penn State, and there was not a chance ever he would go there, right? It's way too cold. Like, not a chance he would go there. So, to that point, he's probably going to love the weather here. Outside of, South Florida, wherever he's been, this has got the warm weather. It's an easy flight across the Gulf of Mexico to perhaps his favorite place, Boca. He's still got a house in Boca and a boat. He goes down there a lot. So I think that he talked about the sort of feeling the power of LSU when he got to the hangar and the board was there and boosters and political figures also there, that he just sort of felt like the whole state was on board. And you can tell that, these jobs are all fairly similar, LSU, Florida, even to a degree, Ole Miss, especially in this era. But and maybe Penn State was the other school. I think that they're so similar that these decisions come down to just one or two little things. In listening to him talk, this decision which separated LSU was a couple things, maybe little things, which is people around him, Jimmy Sexton, Nick Saban, Pete Carroll, telling him it's the best job in the country. And I think part of that is the state, right? It's the only power conference school in the state, and how the state rallies behind like the purple and gold and all that stuff. And that's sort of a good segue into the other reason why he probably took the job, which you asked about, the roster compensation, the NIL, the state just rallying behind that cause. Right, I saw some boosters here. Gordon McKernan was walking out. Obviously, he provides millions in NIL money to the roster. I mean, I think for all those reasons, he chose LSU, and he seems to have fit here. I was at lunch today, and one of the questions was, will Lane come to like lunch and just bullshit around and chat it up in the back room? And no. He's going to be working in the football facility, or he's going to be on his boat, or doing yoga. Like, he's just not a guy that's going to like cut it up at Phil's. Maybe when he has to, but he's not. He's going to be working, and when he's not working, he's probably going to be spending it with his family or on a boat somewhere.
The gumbo was good today. How was your tuna?
The gumbo was really good. I had the bowl of gumbo before at Phil's before the tuna. The tuna is always good. I get it every time I go. I know it's not a Gulf fish. Or what is a Gulf fish? But I don't know if it's from the Gulf. But anyway, it was good. And there's a lot of other fish that I normally would get down here, like trout or something like that. But the tuna there is always amazing, and the gumbo is spectacular.
I love tuna. It's my favorite fish. I saw you eat it, and I was like, I should have gotten that. I'll do it next time.
Next time. The mushroom is very good on top, too.
I'll let you buy lunch next time.
All right.
That'd be good. All right. Ross Dellenger from yahoosports.com at Ross Dellenger. Great work. Thank you. I appreciate it. And by the way, I get to remind you about Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys. So get Gordon and get it done. Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys. Gordon was here earlier today. Of course, you go to getgordon.com, getgordon.com. Listen, I always say if you've been injured in an accident, it's not your fault. Do what injured people in our state have done for 3 decades. Get Gordon and get it done. But Gordon, one of the things I love so much about talking about Gordon is all the different ways he gives back, the philanthropy. The Gordon Bicycle giveaway is coming up on December the 11th. We'll be doing AFR at Gordon's Bike giveaway at the office here in 10 days. Very much looking forward to that, so a week from Thursday. You can still learn about how you can enter for that at Get Gordon on all the social medias, or go to gordonsbikes.com, gordonsbikes.com. Of course, the many ways Gordon contributes to LSU's NIL. Just an amazing guy, amazing resource, and certainly a true, proud Louisianian who loves to give back to the communities. No matter what community you live in here, whatever you do, if you've been injured, get Gordon and get it done. Okay, y'all, it's After Further Review. Our Monday shows here are presented by Relief Windows and reliefwindows.com. We're at the South Stadium Club. When we come back, we'll go to Oxford. I want to get a sense of Lane Kiffin, the exit from the Ole Miss perspective. Neal McCready, our buddy from Rebels 247, has done an outstanding job covering the story from the Ole Miss side. He'll join us as we continue. We're glad you're with us here on AFR.
After Further Review.
We're brought to you by River City's 1 Hour Air, where they're always on time or you don't pay a dime. 752-0001, 752-0001. I practice what I preach. Last week, had River City's 1 Hour Air out to the house for our heater safety check. If you have not done that yet, what are you waiting on? Do not go through this cold weather season. I can look outside. Night is falling in Baton Rouge. A little mist, a light rain is falling on Tiger Stadium, and the temps right now are in the mid-50s. You're probably going to be getting in front of a fire, cranking up that heater in your house tonight. Make sure that your heater is running efficiently and safely this cold weather season. Make sure River City's 1 Hour Air comes out for your pre-season heater safety check. Call River City's 1 Hour Air to schedule it. 752-0001, 752-0001, 752-0001, or online at onehourbr.com. Spell it out, O-N-E, onehourbr.com. For River City's 1 Hour Air, where they're always on time or you don't pay a dime.
After Further Review. Presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding, and we do shutters too.
We continue here from the South Stadium Club in Tiger Stadium, where just a little more than a half hour ago, the Lane Kiffin introductory press conference wrapped up. Thanks to Ross Dellenger, who is here with us on site. I want to go to Oxford to get some perspective on the story from there. Our buddy Neal McCready from Rebels 247, good enough to join us. He's been all over this story, covering the Ole Miss side of it, and I can imagine we're all just ready for a nap. Hey, man, thank you for the time. How are you?
I am ready for a nap. That is very true. A nap sounds amazing right now.
I can empathize. We appreciate the time. How would you describe the mood around Oxford today relative to what we saw a day ago?
That's a good question today. Probably angry. I think they feel, it's hard for me to speak for a fan base that I'm not part of, if you will. So I'm just kind of taking the general mood of like message boards and stuff. Betrayed, angry, frustrated, lied to, a little worried. There's a lot there. Not a hell of a lot of positive stuff. Mostly everything from consternation to frustration to concern. And I think mainly it's this, Matt. It's that I think if you had told Ole Miss people before the season that, hey, on December the 1st, you're going to be 11-1, 7-1 in the SEC, headed towards the college football playoff, absolutely locked in, I think they would have thought that it would have been euphoria, and it's the opposite of that.
Yeah. So one of the other gigantic pieces of news out of this, Neal, is not only that Lane Kiffin left, but that Ole Miss very quickly elevated Pete Golding to be the permanent head coach. Can you walk us through how they landed on that decision?
Honestly, no. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I can take an educated guess, and that's literally all this is. I don't believe that on Saturday Pete Golding was a candidate for the Ole Miss job. I'm not sure that on Sunday morning Pete Golding was a candidate for the Ole Miss job. Lane Kiffin played hardball with Ole Miss. Everybody can tell their different stories. I have zero doubt that this is true. And I think Ole Miss realized that they had underestimated just how this would go down, which you can pass judgment however you'd like. And I think they saw Pete Golding as the one guy who might be able to retain enough offensive staff and enough momentum in general to be prepared for a playoff game in less than 3 weeks, and perhaps moving forward in terms of assembling the type of staff that would be able to retain most of the current roster. I think it's safe to say that it was a decision made in part with a playoff game in mind.
These two staffs and these two programs right now are undeniably still somewhat conjoined, and how they sever and break is going to be fascinating. So you brought up the staff. Neal, I'll just leave this open-ended. What can you tell us that you know to be true at this point about who is leaving for Baton Rouge and who is staying in Oxford?
It's a great question. The Ole Miss's defensive staff, I believe, almost in its entirety is staying in Oxford. The offensive staff, there are a lot of questions. Charlie Weiss Jr. has left to go to LSU. It's my understanding he's already signed a contract there. There was there has been some thought about him possibly coming back and coaching for the playoffs. I don't know how you do that. You and I have talked about this. I don't think as an SEC program you can have, Charlie Weiss can't come in and be the Ole Miss offensive coordinator. He's the LSU offensive coordinator. I don't know how you let the LSU offensive coordinator in your building to coach for 20 to 50 days, depending on how long Ole Miss stays in the playoffs. John Garrison, as of this moment, it's my understanding, is still at Ole Miss, although he is entertaining, obviously, overtures from LSU, and I've heard overtures from Nebraska. So I don't know where his situation stands. I think the same applies for Kevin Smith, not the Nebraska part, but everything else. George McDonald, the wide receiver coach, is now at LSU. There's some staffers that are still here, some staffers that, analysts and such that are there at Baton Rouge with Kiffin. So pretty much in flux on the offensive end for the most part. I would think that's where most of the concern here is right now. You have a game in 19 days, and they don't really have an offensive staff to coach it.
I was told from someone on the LSU staff yesterday that Joe Cox is also here, who was a co-OC.
Cox is there too. I apologize.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to clarify to make sure. So with no Joe Cox, no Charlie Weiss, no Lane Kiffin, who would call plays for Ole Miss in the playoff?
I would assume at this point it would be Joe Judge, the quarterback's coach, former New York Giants coach. I would assume that he would do it. I think Fisher Ray is still here, one of the analysts. It would be, it would be difficult.
Yeah.
There's no way around that. It's Charlie is the primary play caller. Lane is a brilliant offensive mind who sees things in real time and helps with adjustments and gut feelings and stuff of that nature. So you are asking to replace a lot and do it in less than 3 weeks.
Just a couple more. Neal McCready is with us from Rebels 247. He's on Twitter at Neal McCready. Make sure you give him a follow. Great time to find the site if you haven't yet. If you want the Ole Miss news throughout all of this, the roster fluctuation is going to be a big part of it as well, Neal. And there have been a lot of reports. I don't know what to deem credible and what not to deem credible because I don't cover Ole Miss on a day-to-day basis. So what can you tell us about current players on the Ole Miss roster and who may be staying, going, opting out, or anything along those lines?
I've heard nothing about opt-outs yet. Obviously, it's early. There's some rumblings, but I've heard nothing that I could put any stock into at this point in terms of sourcing. Look, I think most of these guys will want to play in the playoffs. They've earned the right to play in the playoffs. It's a chance to compete for a championship. One of 12 teams that's going to have that opportunity. So I'd be surprised if you had opt-outs of the playoffs. Now, once the playoffs are over, obviously we all know who the names are. Guys that I think obviously Lane Kiffin is going to want to try to bring with him. Once that time arrives, January 2nd, Ole Miss has an opportunity here, a window to try to close that down. You can try to get those situations taken care of where they don't enter the portal, but in a world where you see a Kejuan Lacey or a Winston Watkins Jr. enter the portal, maybe some other guys. I think you don't have to be a genius to figure out one of their top choices would probably be LSU. Now they're going to get, like everyone else, Matt, everyone tampers. Everyone's going to be after those kinds of players. So, those guys are in a world where everyone's a prospective free agent. Those guys are going to have their options.
Last thing, what about the early signing period is Wednesday. We've already seen a number. I think it's 4, maybe Ole Miss commitments that have decommitted. You please correct me if I'm wrong. What do you anticipate for Wednesday?
think most of their defensive commitments will stick. I think a lot of their offensive commitments won't. They'll have to scramble a little bit. The way this program has been built under Kiffin, it's been pretty reliant on the portal. I would think that obviously in year one under Golding, that means that they'll have to dive into the portal on the offensive end, which is kind of what they're used to doing as a program. Again, so and that's no knock on Lane. It's just the way that he's built this program here. I think they'll do a lot of that, and then it'll be curious to see moving forward. The next class, does Pete Golding shift from a portal dependent program to one that's more reliant on high school talent? And if he does, is he able to recruit that talent successfully? And there's no way to know those answers yet.
I have a feeling this is not the last time I'm going to be calling you in the coming days and weeks, but we appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right. That's Neal McCready from Rebels 247. Make sure you get him on Twitter at Neal McCready. We're brought to you by First South Farm Credit, firstsouthland.com, firstsouthland.com. Thinking of buying land, your first call should be to First South Farm Credit. So log on to firstsouthland.com. It doesn't matter if you need 1,000 acres for agriculture. We've played some of the testimonials of some farmers, cattle farmers in the state of Louisiana who have dealt with First South Farm Credit, telling stories of, their lender meeting them on the side of the road to sign paperwork on the hood of a truck, if that's what it took. They'll go above and beyond for you. Amazing Louisiana-based people who are here in Louisiana, but also with branches in Mississippi and Alabama as well, and they can help you buy land anywhere in the lower 48. So if you want to buy land, First South Farm Credit can help. Go to firstsouthland.com. That's firstsouthland.com. All right, it's after further review. We are rolling along here from the South Stadium Club. We've got about 30 minutes left in the show. If you want to get a question, comment in, email us, tweet us, text us in the 225-396-4400, 396-4400, 396-4400. Lots of ways you can get involved in the show. A tumultuous weekend there in Oxford, but it landed with Lane Kiffin as the LSU head football coach, as we suspected here for some time that it would. LSU gets it across the finish line. They've got their new head coach who was introduced, and now he assembles a staff and builds out a roster for 2026 as hopefully LSU is back on the path toward competing for championships again. We will continue here on AFR, presented by Relief Windows.
After further review.
Well, our family Black Friday tradition, another year in the books. We woke up on Black Friday, and despite the fact that Kiffin Watch was going on, we made our way over to Clegg's Nursery, got our Christmas tree, and you should do the very same. It is an amazing time to get by Clegg's Nursery, any of the 4 locations, Segan Air Airline, LA 16 in Denham, Mid-City on Don Moore, and the Garden Center on Greenwell Springs. And when you pull up we went to the Segan Clegg's. You pull in the parking lot, they had the big 13 to 15-foot trees in the front of the store this year. Usually they keep in the yard at the back, but it was incredible to walk up to see these giant, like Griswold family Christmas trees. But they have trees of all different sizes. So make sure you go pick up your family's Christmas tree at Clegg's Nursery at any of the 4 locations. They have amazing selection of poinsettias as well and tons of Christmas decor. So get on by any of the 4 Clegg's Nursery locations. And be sure to tell them that Matt sent you in. See our friends today at Clegg's Nursery.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding, and we do shutters too.
Actually, we were going by Tiger Stadium. I called one person. I called Ed Ogeron. And I said, hey, man, all I can do is, this place just makes me want to talk like you right now. I did. I was like, we were in the car, and the kids were in there, and I was like, and the coaches, and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like channeling Ed right now. I was like, I'm feeling him. Like, I rolled down the window, and I was like, go Tigers to the fans. And I'm like, so I called Ed. I said, I don't know what's going on, man, but I'm feeling you right now.
Certainly the funniest moment, the greatest moment of levity of the press conference there, where Lane Kiffin discussed channeling his inner Ed Ogeron there. That's going to be a really fascinating development, as we've heard multiple reports throughout the past few weeks, as this has seemed like it was going to become a reality with Lane Kiffin becoming the coach. Certainly a very strong possibility where I believe most of it has been agent driven from the Ed Orgeron side. And it's why this. By the way, that's a very common thing. That's what agents do. Agents that are good at their jobs get their candidate mentioned for jobs. I mean, that's how you create a market and create buzz and awareness, and it's how the game is played. So I don't know that Ed Orgeron was ever really a candidate for the head coaching jobs at Arkansas or Oregon State, as maybe had kind of been rumored or reported, but I do think very much so that he wants to get back into coaching, that he wants to coach again. And I do believe that Ed Orgeron would accept a job on Lane Kiffin's staff if offered. I do not know if that's something that has been offered. And Neal McCready, who was just with us, said the entire defensive staff is expected to stay there in Oxford. So that would leave the door open for Lane Kiffin to retain this defensive staff, which means if you did bring in someone, if you brought in Ed Orgeron, playing the hypothetical again, I do not know. I'm being very candid with you. I do not know anything there. If you did bring in Ed Orgeron, what would that mean for Kyle Williams? I think maybe there's some question about that. Look, Kyle Williams was in his first year of coaching college football, and maybe there have been some whispers like, does he want to continue coaching in college? This was one of the things that was surprising. If you rewind the clock to when Kyle was hired, one of the things that surprised me was there was certainly a narrative, a feeling around Kyle. He's got young children or high school age children. His daughters are competitive soccer players and wants to watch them compete, and was coaching at his alma mater at Ruston. You come into this ecosystem and you have this crazy year with all the expectation and then the disappointment, and Brian Kelly gets fired and now a new staff, and you get caught up in that and say, is this what you want? I don't know the answer, but that's something that Kyle Williams may have to answer if he does stay on staff, or if he's invited to stay on staff. That's obviously a decision that Lane Kiffin will have to make. When he was asked about the staff, he didn't talk about names specifically. But that's one we'll certainly keep an eye on there on the defensive staff, what happens with Kyle Williams. And is Ed Orgeron a real candidate to rejoin the staff? But just hearing Lane Kiffin there reference Ed Orgeron is an indicator of their friendship, their relationship, and that possibility would stand to reason would be there. I want to talk about the recruits here in just a moment and some of the fallout there. We are brought to you by Parish Restoration, parishrestoration.com. Kill mold, remove odor, other harmful pathogens. If you have odor, maybe it's sweat, pet, fire, smoke odor, Parish Restoration can come in, spray their patented non-toxic dry fog treatment, knock it all out. Maybe you got flu going through your office building or COVID. They can come in, spray. They'll close the windows and the doors, let the fog dwell. It'll kill everything down to the spores. And as soon as the fog dissipates, boom, you're back in clean, sanitized, great, clean smelling as well. It's Parish Restoration. Go to parishrestoration.com, parishrestoration.com. So the other part of this conversation, of course, is what's happening with this recruiting class, and we'll very much look forward to having Shea Dixon with us here on Tuesday, as he always is, to sort of sift through this. It'll be a day before the early signing period. But one of the things that Lane Kiffin discussed there in the press conference, and it was a question that I asked, and I asked the question knowing through a lot of the conversations I've had over the past 2 weeks that this was a thing that really weighed heavily in his decision to pick LSU, was the pitch LSU made for NIL. Again, I'll say it again. It's one thing to fund your collective and be able to write checks and just pay players like you were able to do in the previous iteration of NIL. Now you have to have true third-party NIL. So those deals have to be approved by the NIL Go clearinghouse. Well, who has the plan to actually get those deals done? As I understand it, LSU has been working. Listen, Clay Harris, who's LSU's chief revenue officer, on this show 6 months ago, told us that they have been working on that plan for 12 to 18 months. So it was 6 months. I mean, you started almost 2 years. LSU's been working on that plan with NILSU Max. I mean, we sat in this room a few months ago for an NILSU Max event, and where they had dozens of business owners in Baton Rouge to explain further this plan and how they can get business owners can get involved in true NIL and do brand deals with student athletes. And Lane Kiffin said, yes, this was a giant part of his decision to pick LSU.
I told Jimmy Sexton, don't tell me the numbers, okay? I want to make a decision that has nothing to do with money for me. Now, tell me the numbers in the plan for what the money is for the players, because that's everything in that area. To me, it was very important and very critical. And Verge and his team had a really, really good plan. Even talked to some donors that are part of that plan here to see exactly how does that work. And there's a great plan here. There's a great plan of how we can come together with what we bring and what players around the country want to play for us and play in our systems, and then have that support to be able to do that so that they want to play for us and they get taken care of financially, which obviously nowadays is the world of college football, and it's very important and critical to them, which it should be. And this was the best setup. That definitely played a factor into it.
The best setup, and that definitely played a factor into it. I think that's undeniable at this point. That was a huge driving factor. Now, from LSU's perspective, they got affirmation from both Lamar Brown and by the way, the photos of Lamar Brown visiting with Lane Kiffin. Lamar Brown has been just in lockstep this whole process. He attended every LSU home football game this year. He's been on campus. He was at practices. He was with Lane Kiffin in his office on Sunday night. So Lamar Brown firmly committed. He'll sign on Wednesday. Richard Anderson, Sam Spiegelman from On3 and Rivals reported that Richard Anderson, the 5-star defensive lineman out of New Orleans, shut down his recruitment as well. I was told today from someone close to Richard Anderson and this recruiting process that a big part of that Richard Anderson affirming his decision involves Frank Wilson being on staff. Now, I think everybody wants Frank Wilson on staff, but you heard Neal McCready with us just a bit ago. Kevin Smith has been the running backs coach with Lane Kiffin from his time at FAU and then through Ole Miss. He's been with him almost a decade. And I can tell you that Kevin Smith's family is in Baton Rouge today, sort of touring the city to see if this is a move that they want to make. And I do believe Lane Kiffin is pushing hard to get Kevin Smith and to get Garrison, the offensive line coach, to join him here in Baton Rouge. Well, if you get Kevin Smith to join this staff, then what does that mean for Frank Wilson? I don't know that he could continue as running backs coach. Does he accept a new role? Is there I do not, just candidly do not have the answer. But that's a real key component, not only for someone like Richard Anderson, current Tigers like Harlem Berry, who is so close with Frank Wilson. I don't know that you make a decision just for a player or two, but when they're really significant players and you have someone like Frank Wilson, who's such a key member of this staff and key to recruiting New Orleans and is so respected by this team and teams that he has coached, you would love to find a way for it to work for Frank Wilson to continue on LSU staff. But that's a giant question that still sort of is permeating right now, this decision, as we wait to see what Lane Kiffin's going to do with his coaching staff. So as we know more, we'll certainly, let you know as we continue that on. Hey, we're brought to you by the Williamson Eye Center, 924-2020, 924-2020, or williamsoneye.com is interesting. Honest to goodness, true story, hand on stack of Bibles. Buddy, Michael, who's a photographer for The Advocate, before we started the show, he walked up to me and goes, "Hey, man, wanted to tell you in person, thank you for recommending the Williamson Eye Center." Michael's pushing 50. He's a photographer, so obviously needs good eyesight. He had the EVO ICL procedure, so he was not a candidate for LASIK, but he was able to have the EVO ICL, which is the implantable contact lens, where they implant contact lens in your eyes, which is a reversible procedure. But he says it's been amazing. Pain-free. The procedure was pain-free. The recovery was a sin. She was seeing 2015 better than 2020 at nearly 50 years old. Incredible testimonial, and Dr. Blake Williamson is just the best. So you want to see 2020, call 924-2020. 924-2020 or williamsoneye.com. Am I lying? You're not lying. I'm not lying. He's literally to my left. You see? The true testimonials. I don't make this stuff up. 924-2020 or williamsoneye.com, williamsoneye.com. Dude, I did not even see you standing right there, I swear. But he did tell me that. And I didn't even use your last name, so I just left it, let the generic. All right, it's after further review. We're here at South Stadium Club. We're glad to have you aboard with us. Got one segment left to go. Jimmy will be here for Otter Locks. We'll find out what we're betting on tonight. Been a jam-packed day, and glad you're hanging out with us. We'll wrap it up next here on AFR.
AFR.
Hey, listen, it's not too late to call Duplessis Builders and get started on giving your family the best gift ever for Christmas. Putting in a pool. Now, they can't have your pool done by Christmas, obviously. But one of the great things about what Duplessis Builders does is they offer the full spectrum, the gamut. If you want the gigantic, beautiful custom resort-style pool at literally any budget, they can do it. And they'll do it better than anyone. Derek is an engineer by trade, an awesome dude as well, and they will build you a beautiful pool that lasts. 10-year workmanship warranty, where the industry standard is 1 year. But they also have, like, let's say you want something smaller, something a little more petite, whatever it may be, or anything in between, they can do it. And you can go to their website right now. They have 11 different pool designs already made where you can go in, choose your finishes. You can even put down your deposit or pay for it on the website right now. DuplessisBuilders.net.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding, and we do shutters too.
Down the stretch we come, final segment here on a Monday edition of AFR presented by Relief Windows. Always appreciate Brandon Holly and the great team over at Relief Windows for the awesome work they do. Check them out at reliefwindows.com. All right, one thing left to do. Let's find out what we're betting on tonight. It's time for Otter Locks.
Otter Locks.
All right, time to win some money.
Presented by Total Maintenance AC Repair. Same-day service means you will never sleep hot. 480-1000. We are Total Maintenance.
I think it's safe to say that I won the bet.
How are you?
Good afternoon, Matt. What's up?
Just putting the finishing touches on a wild weekend that was, but Tigers move forward with their new coach. It's a rainy day, and I get to go home, watch Monday Night Football, and hopefully get in bed early tonight, man. I need a good night's sleep. Long overdue. How are we looking for tonight? Monday Night Football?
Yes, indeed. And the Lane Kiffin theme continues, I guess you could say, with one of his quarterbacks in Jackson Dart coming back to play. So people will question whether or not he would come back. But same thing with Joe Burrow, and he had a good Thanksgiving night game at Baltimore as well. Nine-game winning streak for New England in this one, and the Giants are just 2-10. But man, they have been competitive, and I think that's going to be the same thing tonight. So 7 is a lot of points against a team. Now that it's an interesting stretch for New England, because not only are they out with Will Campbell without Will Campbell for about a month or so. Another offensive lineman is out this week as well. So maybe that'll help the Giants' rush defense, who's been near the bottom of the league this year. But I think a more competitive game tonight, so we're taking the Giants plus the 7.
Giants plus the 7 there in New England on Monday Night Football. Where are you tomorrow?
We're at Mike Anderson's on Lee, just off of Nicholson, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
That is every single day live at lunch with Charles and Jimmy. All right, Otter, we appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, good luck.
Thanks, man. Be well. It's After Further Review. We are brought to you by Supper Club. They're closed tonight. I'd imagine the Kiffins probably won't take too long before they find their way over to Supper Club. You can get your reservation at supperclubbtr.com, supperclubbtr.com. Closed Sunday, Monday, but open Tuesday to Saturday. And with the holidays nearing, what an awesome way to go treat your family that's in town for the holidays to an amazing meal, the best meal that they'll have at Baton Rouge or anywhere, and the best dining experience anywhere as well. When we talk about the Sagrera cuts, the only place you're getting them is at Supper Club. When we talk about the Japanese omi beef, that's the favorite cut of the Emperor of Japan. Only place you're getting it is at Supper Club. We talk about those Alaskan king crab legs. They literally get them off the boats from the show The Deadliest Catch. The names of the boats are on the crates that come in. There's just no better dining experience anywhere than Supper Club. So book your reservation at supperclubbtr.com. That's supperclubbtr.com for Supper Club. All right, y'all, just about to put the finishing touches here on today's episode after a wild weekend. Really, it's been a wild 2 weeks, and everyone's asked, when you really knew that Lane Kiffin was coming. And, Lane in his press conference said that, he informed Ole Miss on Saturday night that he was accepting the LSU job. And while that may be true, that was sort of the formal moment, You know, I look back to how all this changed, and the day that the Kiffin family visited Baton Rouge 2 weeks ago today is really when things started the hard pivot away from Florida toward LSU. And then, as Lane said, all of the mentors that he had basically said everyone outside of the state of Mississippi told him, take the LSU job. It's the best job in football. All of the influence of people he trusts, and then the job Verge Osberry and this team did, eliminating every barrier that week. That week is when everything really trended toward LSU. And that Friday, the board meeting that went into executive session, that night when the contract terms leaked to Ross Dellenger, that was the day where I think time will tell, and eventually the word will come out that was the day where LSU had their commitment from Lane Kiffin that he was coming on that Friday. But like we always say, until ink is dry on a contract, and I don't believe the ink was dry on the contract until that Saturday night, as Lane said when he informed Ole Miss that he was taking the LSU job. He wanted to coach his team, and they were never going to let him do it. That's something that was made abundantly clear, even to me and certainly to Lane Kiffin. So throughout this process, so it dragged on, I think, in a longer, messier way than it needed to. And my hope from this is that this does serve as the impetus to change the calendar. And I don't know how they do it. And this is going to be a conversation that people way smarter at higher levels of pay than me are going to have to make. But is there a way to start the season earlier so it finishes on New Year's Day so you can have a coaching cycle? But if you continue with the December signing period, it's impossible necessarily to do that. But they're going to have to do something, because I think Nick Saban said it best. This isn't a Lane Kiffin issue. It's not an Ole Miss issue. It's not an Ole Miss issue. It's not an LSU issue. This became so ugly and messy because the college football calendar necessitates something like this if you want to hire away a coach from a team that's still playing. Now, it could have been handled better, I believe, by Lane or by Keith Carter, but ultimately it's done. Lane Kiffin is LSU's head football coach. Now he hires a staff, he recruits a roster, and LSU begins their path, hopefully, back toward championship level football. And that all starts right now. And we'll be here every step of the way. Muse Pauly back in studio. Cassie on site. We appreciate it. Y'all have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow at 3.
AFR.
As we get on down the road, we remind you about Rev, R-E-V, Let's Rev, Let'sRev.com, Let'sRev.com. 90 years, 90 years of local service. 90 years. And presently, 70,000 Louisiana homeowners and business owners trust Rev for their internet, for their cable, for their home automation, whatever it may be along those lines. Rev, you get a local call center right here. When you call Rev, you're not getting AI, you're not getting an answering service, you're not getting a call center overseas. You're getting a call center right here in this market with people from here that answer your phone call that are there to help. They give you a better customer service experience and, quite honestly, a better product. 5 gigs of amazing internet service in a fiber network, so it's buried. You don't have to worry about trees knocking the lines down and your cable or power going out or your internet going out. Let'sRev.com. R-E-V. Let'sRev.com.